Good morning, everybody. Good night, everybody. As you can see, I'm not in normal time space. The facial hair is just from the time period. It's not because I'm unkempt at this point. Thank God everything's okay. But we're going to have B'ezras Hashem very special class tonight. For any of the new people, hi, nice to meet you, or good to see you in person. So because this is our last Sunday class, I hope you guys will give me a little bit of space to mochel me and forgive me. I didn't have so much time today as I hoped I was going to. You guys know that this is my last week here before B'ezras Hashem go to Israel. So I'm trying to help my wife. Packing was never really my thing. So anyway, today was a good start, a little bit of a shaky start. So, but hopefully that's going to be even better. I'm just going to speak from my heart. I'm hoping that tonight what you're going to come out with are a lot of basic principles that I believe in very much, that have saved my life, and that I've tried over the course of the past 4 or 5 years. I don't know how much I've been with you guys, to convey to you at different time periods, but I want to kind of give it to you all in one shot. And I thought a good way to do that, to make that real and genuine for you, instead of listing it off, I would tell you about this past week's experience for me. Because I think what happens often, we hear teachers speak about different things, rabbis speak about different things. I know that when I hear rabbis, they seem like they have it all figured out. But like anybody knows, and if you ask them privately, they would tell you they haven't. So where do you see that? You don't. So I try to give you a space in my world a little bit. And I'm going to be open and honest about something that happened to me this past week. And I want to tell you how I dealt with it. I think that's much more practical. I think that's much more valuable than me just giving you a nice drasha or divrei chizuk. And B'ezras Hashem, you guys will take tools from this into your life to deal with, because you're going to see that really, and this is not something that I'm priding myself on. This is not something that I feel accomplished about. It actually came out of desperation. That is, that when you don't have the tools to deal with life, and then all of a sudden a spiritual master comes and you find out that one of his tools works. So you try it and it helps. And then you find out another tool works. And then you realize that everything that he says works. So now all of a sudden you have a whole bag of tools in the toolkit. It doesn't necessarily mean everything is going to be groovy all the time. But at least now I have different healthy means, as opposed to trying to find the local liquor store, or calling the guy to give me bud, or some of my later enjoyments that came towards the end of college, before I stopped doing drugs because of the possible fatal heart attack that the doctors thought I was having, whether it was cocaine or whether it was mushrooms or whether it was acid. And again, I'm not telling you because I'm but it's just a lot of people have tried these things, and I feel that we get lost in translation. And there's really no difference between me and you, except for the fact that like I had the guts to wear a pink tie tonight, but like otherwise we're exactly the same. We're just friends talking, okay? And what I want to do is I want to draw from a famous Gemara and try to show a chiddush in the Gemara. This is something that Benny's been working on for as long as I've known him. This is Masechet Brachot. Most people that you know have been learning Masechet Brachot their whole life, have never moved past that Gemara, and also feel no shame about continuing to hammer away out of it. So we'll start like this. What happened this past week? I was in Florida with my family. Like often happens with many people, even if they feel like they've worked certain things out, as soon as they go home to their parents, they regress into infants. So thank God I've come a long way, and I don't really do that anymore. But Rabbi Nachman teaches that when a person is very close to achieving something very important in their life, and the things that he mentions are going to see the tzaddik, going to Uman to see the tzaddik, going to the land of Israel, things that are of vast, infinite, eternal importance, that the closer you get to these things happening, the more obstacles pop up. Now, when we think of obstacles, we usually think they're going to be external. Yeah, my tire is going to flat. My car is going to malfunction. My phone stops working. I don't have business at work, X, Y, and Z. But as many of us know, and Rabbi Nachman points out to us, and all the Hasidic masters speak about this, that this is really the ikar of Tehillim, of David HaMelech, that is that all the enemies that David was speaking about, King David, were internal. They weren't external. And you can literally have, so to speak, everything worked out. You could have been learning years of wisdom. You could have been learning years of the deepest secrets of Torah, and literally worked every day to bring it into your life. And still, one day, you can just wake up and things can be completely upside down. The Baal Shem Tov, there's a very famous story of his, that he was out with his scribe, and they had gotten kidnapped, I believe, by pirates or something like that. You know, normal basic stuff that you guys experience on a daily basis. And at the time, the scribe who was with him, he knew that the Baal Shem Tov did many magic tricks. He had a lot of abilities to do things spiritually, to be able to change scenarios, situations using names of Hashem. The Rizal was very proficient in this. So was the Rashash. So was the Baal Shem Tov. So he said, Master, do something. And he'd sit there, you know, like in the superhero videos or like the cartoons, you know, you sit here and he's trying to do all these things, and all of a sudden, like, nothing happens. And he says, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot everything that I know. He said, what do you mean? He said, do one of the Shems, then one of the names of Hashem, or say something, do something, you know? He said, I'm so sorry. I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything. So he's like, what are we going to do? He said, do you remember any Torah? He goes, I don't know. Let me think about it. He goes, oh my gosh, I don't remember anything either. He goes, you got to remember something. So the scribe said, I think I remember the Aleph bet. So the Baal Shem Tov says, start saying it. So he says, why am I going to start saying the Aleph bet? What is it? He's going to trust me. Just say it, please. So he goes, okay, fine. He's like, Aleph bet. And then all of a sudden he joins with them. Gimel, Dalet, Hey. And they're doing the whole thing together. And all of a sudden, as he's saying these letters, all of the secrets come back to the Baal Shem Tov. He does some kind of thing. And then you see all the bad guys with like ropes around their legs hanging up by the tree. You guys know that never saw the returns, something like that. Okay. I changed the story at the end a little bit, but they got out. But you see, even by the Baal Shem Tov, things like this happen. And this is what Rabbi Nachman comes to teach us. It is very, very normal to have bad days. It is very, very normal to fall. It is very, very normal to go down. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It doesn't mean that you have a lacking. It doesn't mean that you're not perfect. It doesn't mean that Hashem didn't make you that way. It's normal. We're learning in this Torah that we're learning right now that you're constantly going up and down. We already feel like that, but he's saying that is the way of life. Yeah. And I'm going to draw on this teaching in a minute. So out of nowhere, I just started to feel very, very down. And there's no reason for me to. I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this for years. I've been crying and screaming and praying to go to the land of Israel for the past half a decade in my hippo to do it every single day. So I'm very, very excited. Obviously, for sure, there's things going on, like my students being here, different stressors with family. So that's all there, but nothing that should shake me up so much that I fall into such a deep abyss. But I really felt like that this past week. And what did I used to do in those situations? So I often, because I can't take pain, because the pain that I feel is so intense, a lot of people feel like that, especially people who have psychological issues, that they all have, you know, people always ask, what's the difference between you and me? I just know how to deal with my stuff. The truth is usually that people who have psychological distress, they have the same emotions as you, but they're just more intense, much, much more intense. Same emotions, just more intense. My emotions are very intense. And I'm sitting there with these intense emotions. And in the past, I used to do things to numb those emotions. Yeah, I would go watch TV for hours and hours and hours. I would go play video games. I would go hang out with my friends and engage in very dangerous behaviors and activities that put my life on the line. Yeah, and these things could make me feel better or help me to escape. I don't do that anymore. Yeah, so I used to do things like that. Something else I used to do is I used to feed into it. As soon as I started to have a negative feeling or a negative thought, I would sink into it, you know, like into a nice couch. You have a nice couch of sadness, of emptiness, of loneliness, of scaredness. And what I used to do, I used to make myself so comfortable there. used to sit there. I used to put a blanket on there. I used to eat pints of ice cream there. Stay in that space. People came over, what's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with me. Everything's fine. What's wrong? I have ice cream all over my face. Everything's okay. Don't worry about it. Cover over, in whatever way that I can. But I would engage in it. Why? Because here we go again. I'm a victim. My life has always been like this. My life is always going to be like this. I'm a loser. I suck. All the different basic stuff that every single one of us have secret conversations about privately every day with our own selves. What else would I do? I'd lash out at the people around me. I'd start screaming at my parents. I get upset maybe at my wife, lose my temper with my kids. There's a whole host of things that can happen in these moments. And then usually what would go from there, I would go even deeper into the darkness until I had to go see a psychiatrist, until I had to go see my therapist. And then I started a psych med, and then it didn't help me. And then they had to increase the dosage, and I started to have side effects. And now I'm going increasingly more into my state of sadness because it's getting worse and not getting better. Doctors say, we don't know. I go to another doctor, and you guys see where this is going. So when I say that Rabbi Nachman saved my life, I don't mean it figuratively. I mean it as literally as possible. That I have countless tools, Torahs that I've learned, that I draw from every single one of them, okay? So now I want to show you the essential reason why I'm not like that right now. Obviously, it's from Hashem. But how can it be that maybe a few years ago, that would put me in years worth of depression? Whereas now I already feel much better. Okay? That's the gist of the lesson. So there's a famous Gemara in Masechet Brachot. Benjamin, you know this one? It's Dalit. I think it's early enough. Yeah? Okay. It says that anybody who says Ashrei 3 times a day, he's assured Olam Haba. Okay? It's a very famous Gemara. Anyone who says Ashrei 3 times a day, and because of this Gemara, the sages instituted that Jewish men and women, every morning, they say Ashrei twice, and in the afternoon, they say Ashrei once, covered 3 times. But the obvious question that I had as I was reading it, like often happens before Hashem throws me into a situation, who cares? I say Ashrei 3 times and I go to Olam Haba. How about I helped a poor person? How about somebody was really distressed and overwhelmed and I saved them from their life-threatening situation? How about I worked on myself and I became a much better person than I was and I started? No. If you say Ashrei, Yoshvei Veitecha 3 times a day, you get Olam Haba. Make sense to you guys? Anybody? No. Okay. So the Gemara says like this. What's the reason? The reason's very deep. Because it's an acrostic. That in David HaMelech's Tehillim, that this is one of the prakim, this is one of the chapters in which the entire thing is an acrostic. That means that all of Aleph Bet is in there. That's what the Gemara says. Yeah. Okay, so on paper, so why is that so special? So one of the deep reasons is because in Kabbalah it's explained that Hashem created the entire universe with all 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And we see even deeper than that, that the events and the years of your life are actually working on each of these different letters. That we see that Yaakov Avinu, how long was he working for Rachel, for Leah, and then even after that? Does anybody know? 22 years. Does anybody know how long that Yosef at Tzaddik, he was separated from his father Yaakov Avinu? 22 years. What's the reason? The same reason that you're assured Olam Haba if you say Ashrei 3 times a day. That is that 22 represents the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And every aspect of your life is made up of one of those letters. You have different tekufas in your life. You have different seasons in your life. You have different time periods in your life. They're all really metakening, rectifying these different letters. And when you have rectified all the letters of your own life, then you move on to Olam Haba. And this is all signified by Ashrei, that David HaMelech put the whole thing in one parak. Okay? There's one reason. Comes somebody else and they give another opinion. And what's the other opinion? Which is the more famous one? Because we say Poteach et Yadecha. Yeah. By the Ashkenazim, you can't really hear it, but by Sephardim, they go, Poteach et yedecha. And the hands go up, yeah? And they go back in their bends and they get back to work. Poteach et yedecha. Umasbir leho chai ratzon. Yeah? You open up your hands, Hashem, and you sustain everyone according to their ratzon. Good. So then they come along and they say, but I don't understand. We have in Hallel that Hashem gives bread to every single creature. Just say it in Hallel, it's even greater. He says, you're right. The truth is, it's for both those reasons. Because of the Aleph Bet, and because of the fact that you say Potecha Yedecha, and it's both together, that's the reason you say Ashrei 3 times. But at the end, I'm still sitting there, and I'm a little curious about how this guarantees you Olam Haba. And I had a little bit of a chidush. When you read Potecha Yedecha, Hashem, you open your hands, Umasbir leho chai ratzon. It should say, like the Gemara comes to say, that you give everybody bread, you give everybody sustenance, you give everybody parnasa, you give everybody shefa. It doesn't say that. It says he gives everybody according to your ratzon. According to your ratzon. And I had a thought. Many times in life, we struggle. And the suffering is not coming from the event itself. It's because we do not believe that it's going according to our ratzon. Let's say, for instance, you're in this class and you're hoping to hear something else. You come to this class and now I'm talking about this and you're upset. Why are you upset? You're not upset because I'm talking about this. You're upset because it's not according to your ratzon. That's when people get upset. Comes the Torah to teach you. Do you know what Hashem is doing with you at every moment of your life? It's not what you think. He's not giving you according to your needs. He's not giving you according to your wants. He's not giving you according to your situation. He's giving you according to your deepest will. Have any of you ever taken a time in your life to sit down and think about what do you really want in your life? Not what do you want because society told you, not what do you want because you're scared to be alone, not what do you want because you don't want to look like a failure. Has anybody ever thought to themselves, what do I really want? I remember I had a conversation with one of the students of Tzion about a half a year ago. And he called me in distress, as was commonly the case. And I had a very real conversation with him. I said, listen, I want you to take a time before the Chag starts. And I want you to ask Hashem, if I had no financial concerns, if I had no fears, if I had no concerns about people supporting me or being against me, if I had no limitations or constraints whatsoever, what would I want to do with my life? He said, but that's not a realistic question. I said, forget about realistic for a second. Before you get to what's realistic, I want to know what's your ratzon, because I want to guarantee you something. The reason why you're not happy is because you're not living with what you really want. The reason why a person is basimcha or not basimcha is when a person is genuine and true to their deepest ratzon. Why is it that a person, let's say for instance, he's going to clubs every single night, he's trying to get with random women, yeah? And to tell his friends about it afterwards. But then when he's privately home alone, he's not happy. Why is he not happy? He scored. He won big, yeah? In the secular world, when you go to college, this is like the American dream. You'd be surprised. Thank God a lot of the Bukharians know better. You guys don't end up in those places, at least not in college. Thank God. No education for us. Okay. Yeah. I was just kidding. Okay. Why is he so miserable? Because that's not really what he wants. That's all. That's the only reason. It's not because what he's doing is horrible. It's not because what he's doing is not moral. That's not why he's not happy. He's not happy because that's not really what he wants. You see often that people might be struggling financially. They might be struggling with different varieties of health issues. But if they're doing what they really want to do with their life, they're happy. And you see many people that they have a lot of money and they have a lot of certain circumstances that we would all die for, and yet they're miserable. And what's the reason why? Because they're not doing what they were created in this world to do. That's the only reason. And what is the Torah teaching you? A very big chiddush. And this is what David HaMelech is saying to you. And this is why Ashrei is going to guarantee you Olam Haba. This is what I believe. Because Olam Haba is going to come not just when you get there. Rabbi Nachman says you can have Olam Haba right now. You need to be a Ben Olam Haba. You need to be a Bat Olam Haba. You need to live like you're living in Olam Haba right now. What's going to bring you to Olam Haba? When you do what you were created for in this world. What is that? That you have to think about. That you have to sit down and talk to Hashem about. Because when you understand whatever that thing is, that's what's going to bring you to Olam Haba. And not just in the next world, right now. What's the world of Olam Haba? Rabbi Nachman says in the Likutei Moharan, complete ecstasy. Joy. Not the type of drug with the smiley face. Natural. Happy. Feeling good. Peaceful. Life force. Joy. Why? All because of one thing. I'm in Olam Haba. How do you get there? Your Ratzon. What's your Ratzon? What's your will? Everybody with me right now? Okay. So in this moment that I'm struggling, before I go to Israel, I'm thinking to myself, what do I want? What do I really, 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 really want? Right? In the past, I would just say, I suck. I'm a loser. And I go worse. But I don't do that anymore. Because Rabbi Nachman teaches that the only way you can create a new reality is to have a positive thought. This was not New Age psychology. This is something Rabbi Nachman said in the shtetl 200 years ago. Why? Not just because positive thoughts lead to positive emotions, lead to positive actions. That's true. That's what the therapist will tell you, and it's true. But the reason is much deeper. Because Rabbi Nachman teaches that how was creation originated in the beginning of history. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. That for the sake of Reshit, Hashem created Shemayim and Aretz. What was Reshit? That Hashem had a thought about the Jewish people. From that thought of the Jewish people, Hashem decided to create the world. So Rabbi Nachman has a interesting chiddush from this. So how did the whole world begin? He had a good thought. Hashem had a good thought. He thought about the Jewish people, and then it created the world. Rabbi Nachman comes to teach you, do you want to create a new reality for yourself? You cannot do it if you think a negative thought, because the negative thought will clog up the space of your creation. You're not able to create new realities, or at least allow Hashem to create new realities for you if you think negatively. Because the way in which Hashem creates is through positive thoughts. So what am I doing? I'm not having a negative thought, and I'm not allowing myself to. I'm forcing myself not to. So what's my positive thought? David, what do you want more than anything in the world? I want to help those people who are suffering the most. That's what I really want. That's what I wanted my whole entire life. It's something that's been burning inside of me since I'm a little child, and it's only grown more and more. And this is mamish my dream. And what has helped me thinking, what has helped me to do that? Those moments that I can sit now and talk to you about it. The only reason I'm effective at helping anybody is because I have suffered so much. Now, even though I don't want that, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to struggle. I don't want it at all. I hate it. But do you know what I want more than not that? I want to help those people who are suffering. That is my ratzon. Hashem is guiding every single one of you according to your innermost will. And if you're not connected to your innermost will, you're going to feel that Hashem is cruel. You're going to feel that your life is cruel. You're going to feel that you have been given the worst circumstances. But if you take a moment in Hibodedut and you talk to Hashem and you say, what do I really, really, really want? There is a good chance that what you want is only going to come about by these barriers in your life. I was in the shul this past Shabbat with my friend over here for Mincha, and I'm standing by the Torah, and I just finished a lesson in the Likutei Moharan with my good friend, my cousin. And I picked it randomly, kind of randomly. I didn't read that lesson in a long time. It was 155 in the Likutei Moharan. Rabbi Nachman says that every Jew needs to desire to live in the land of Israel. And he says there why. And we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu that the Gemara says Moshe Rabbeinu saw the land of Israel and he saw something there, and it gave him such a ratzon to want to live there. What did he see? He saw emet. The Gemara says he saw the truth. One opinion. The other opinion is he saw erech hapayim. He saw patience. It's very deep. Patience. Rabbi Nachman says you learn from this that you cannot achieve the truth and you cannot achieve patience except in the land of Israel. And specifically by yearning to get there. And he says that by yearning to live in the land of Israel, a Jew has a segula. And when Rabbi Nachman says segula, it's not hocus pocus. Rabbi Nachman's segulas are like RX, refuas. Yeah? You go for a doctor, he gives you an antibiotic. He says that if you have an issue with sadness, with depression, if you have an issue with anger, yearn to live in the land of Israel, it's going to go away. And I'm standing there thinking about it, that on the one hand, I've dealt with depression my whole life. And on the other hand, ever since I became Baal Tshuva, I've had this deep, deep yearning to live in the land of Israel. Now let's think about a flip. Now on paper, I could just say, Nebach me, that I'm always dealing with negative emotions and I always have to struggle with this. Or maybe there's something waiting for me in Eretz Yisrael. And the only way that Hashem can take me from Western civilization and make sure 100% I move to the Middle East at 30 years old, even though I established my whole life over here and it doesn't make any practical sense, is by giving me a yearning to go there that goes beyond reason. And how does he push me there? Sadness. What creates the yearning? Sadness. A person does not yearn for something unless they're lacking something. Why do I deal with such sadness? Because I have such yearning. For what? I don't know. And this is a complete flip. Maybe the whole reason that I'm suffering so much is because really since the beginning of history, I've been destined to live in the land of Israel, and who knows what's going to happen over there. But how are you going to get somebody from New Jersey who grew up completely secular, doesn't know what Shabbat and Tefillin is, at 30 years old with 3 kids and a wife, already established job, already go to school, to go transfer and live in the Middle East, to live in the land of Israel? How are you going to do that? He must have some serious, serious lackings. Because how else is he going to yearn to get there if he feels content? Hashem is going according to your innermost ratzon, and you don't know what that is. What does it mean to have bitachon? What does it mean to have trust in Hashem? It's the trust that he knows who you are more than you do. That he knows what's good more than you do. You know how many girls that I dated that I was dying to be with? I'm just being honest with you. Not the first part. Not so many girls. But those girls that I dated, you know how much I wanted it? That if a person came to me is like, David, I don't think it's good for him. I'm like, if I have this one thing, I'm going to be set the rest of my life. She's my love. I love her. And our friend's like, I think you just love the way she looks. No, I love her. Have you spoken to her for more than a few minutes? Probably not. Were you paying attention? Definitely not. Okay. So, but I swear on it, I'm going to be happy after this. So thank God she wasn't interested in me, at least not after a few minutes. But that was crushing for me. Now, if it was going according to what I want, so then I would have had it. But if my innermost ratzon is that I should have somebody who's not from this locale, who's not from this region, who doesn't speak this language naturally, who comes from a completely different culture and country, that's the only person who's going to make me happy. So Hashem's going to make sure that nothing works along the way. Why? Because he knows your ratzon. Because he knows your ratzon. So the one thing so far that we're taking away is when a problem strikes, instead of going into victim mode, which is so easy to do, and I know it very, very well, and it's landed me in the worst, most horrifying, most traumatic places. But if you think to yourself, maybe I have a deeper ratzon than going to work. Maybe I have a deeper ratzon than finding my wife or my husband. Maybe I have a deeper ratzon than just making my parents happy. Maybe I have a deeper ratzon than appearing normal. And until you really do some soul searching and figure out what that is, then it's not time to question Hashem yet. Because every single decision that Hashem has made from you from the beginning until the end of your life is according to your innermost ratzon. It said about David HaMelech, the king, yeah? We know Mashiach comes from David. David Malka Mashiach. He suffered his whole life. Ad Matai, he's screaming to Hashem. Until when? Until when? Until when? But what's the end of this Gemara? That King David, he wrote this Tehillim, and he specifically did not put the nun. You're going to see that in Ashrei, you go from the beginning until the end. You'll see every letter, but you won't see the nun. Why? Because the nun represents fallen, a state of being fallen, a state of being depressed, a state of being down and out. He didn't include that. It was too sensitive for him. It was too much of a soft topic. So he didn't place it. But then if you look at the next pasuk, it says, Somech et noflim. That the nun is now placed in the next one, but it's not the beginning of it. It's that Hashem supports those who are fallen. He's about to put the nun. He's about to put the state of being fallen. He's about to put the state in which you're down and out and it's never going to get better. And all of a sudden, he thinks twice. And he says, 1 second, Hashem's going to help you. Hashem specifically helps that person. Why did David write that? Because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to support all those who were fallen. The whole entire Tehillim was written with Ruach HaKodesh. The reason why when you read those passages in Tehillim that were written thousands of years ago, that Jews and non-Jews alike have been crying over, praying, men, women, Jewish, not Jewish, whoever, and feeling like for the first time in my life, someone resonates with me, it's because that David was speaking from all of your pain, because it was his innermost will that he should be the one to support you. Because David is actually the human manifestation of the Shekhinah. David represents the Malchut. In Kabbalah, the Malchut is the Shekhinah. King David is the living Shekhinah. This is the reason why he's the king of Israel. This is the reason why everybody feels him, so to speak. This is the reason why everybody connects to him. And that's the reason why he has a completely female soul, the Arizal says. Okay? So we can all feel him. Now, I'm sure if you ask David at any moment, he would tell you, I don't want my son trying to kill me. I don't want my wife thinking I'm a joke. I don't want to have parents growing up who think that I'm a bastard child and they ostracize me and put me out in the field. That I have brothers who negate me as if I don't exist. And the list goes on and on and on for all of David's life. But he wanted something more than that. He wanted to support the fallen. If you look at any of the greatest people in history, you will see that it's their very struggle that created their beauty. So many times, and I speak about this often, we see different people who are successful. And we're like, wow, I'd like to be like them. And you read their biography, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. What do I need to do? I need to wear a turtleneck like he wears a turtleneck. I need to put on a watch like he wears a watch. And you'll notice what happens. You put on the turtleneck, you wear the watch, and everybody still thinks you're a joke. Nobody treats you any differently. Why not? Because he didn't become cool because of the turtleneck and the watch. There's another reason he became cool. And now he's wearing a turtleneck and a watch. There is nothing to mimic. When a person lives according to his deepest ratzon, that's how you make it. That's how you become the thing in which you're destined for. And it's your very darkness itself that's going to give birth to that tzemach, that's going to give birth to that seed, that's going to give birth to your messianic experience. It's the struggle itself. And this is the paradox of Hashem's love. We say every night in Arvit, Ma'ariv Arvim, that Hashem brings on nighttime. And the very next thing that it says in Arvit is Avat Olam, infinite love. Infinite love. I bring the nighttime Who's the one bringing nighttime? Me, Hashem. So what's the second thing I did? I looked for the Ratzon, and I also understood that I can't help myself. One of the reasons why people struggle so much is because they think that they are more capable than they are, specifically in the area of saving themselves from distress. It says specifically in Arvit, again, nighttime prayer, I save Yaakov from the one who's stronger than him, Satan. Meaning to say that Hashem is constantly putting each and every one of us in a position in which we are not capable of overcoming it on our own. That is each situation in your life that's difficult. You can't do it. Even if you're the strongest guy in the world, even if you're the most emotionally capable woman in the world, even if you got the greatest education, even if you have the best health, it doesn't make a difference. Hashem's going to figure out a situation that you're not capable of overcoming. Why? So that Hashem can help you overcome it. But how can a person allow Hashem to help him overcome it? He has to first know that Hashem loves him with avat olam, with an infinite love. He has to also know that Hashem wants to help him. And he has to realize also, it's not a lacking that he can't do it on his own. I used to try and help myself all the time, and it got worse and worse and worse. So what do? I do the best that I can, and I put the rest on Hashem, like Rabbi Nachman says in Sequel to Run. I was in Florida. I got in the car when my family went out. They're like, David, take some time to yourself. I drove over. I said, Hashem, please give me a place to pray to you. Because yesterday I did it over here and I felt like people could hear me. And then I got in my car and it was like funky and like, help me to find a good space to talk to. But I didn't have so much time. I'm driving down the street and I see a bench in the middle of a lake and it's not even like normal. You have a house on one side, you have a house on another side, two different properties. And in between the two properties, you have a Segway and then a bench that looks out into the lake. Like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So I go to the bench and I sit down. And this is another thing that I do. Rabbi Nachman says, remember all of the good things that Hashem did for you. Not just so you should be thankful, but to remember that Hashem did things for you. Think about the times that you were down and out before and Hashem helped you. Think about the miracles that you experienced in your life that at the time you're like, whoa, it's amazing. And then you forgot about it since then. Start to say all of them. So I have a list of them and I start to say them. And when I start to struggle more, I look deeper. It's called the Zamra. I find more and more of these. And I also moved into that. Instead of thinking that I'm a loser, I'm bad, I force myself to say, I'm proud of myself. I'm a good person. I'm not here sitting on the bench because I'm not responsible. I'm not sitting on the bench because I haven't tried my hardest. I'm not sitting on the bench because I'm a failure. I'm sitting on the bench because Hashem knows my deepest ratzon. And somehow me sitting here right now is going to bring me closer to that. Because I'm praying all the time that I should believe in Hashem completely. And how can you believe in Hashem completely unless you need him completely? And I'm sitting there and I say to Hashem, I can't help myself. All I can do is come out and talk to you. That's my hishtadlut. Hashem, I need you to do the rest. I don't know how. I don't know what's going to change. But I need you to help me feel better because I can't do it on my own. This is another thing that Rabbi Nachman teaches you. Very, very important. And obviously this third point that we brought in is the Zamra. That you say good things about yourself. You say positive things about yourself. You judge yourself favorably. Through all of these different means and mechanisms, I started to feel a little bit better. It wasn't completely gone. I started to feel a little bit better. I come home, and right before I come home, I'm saying, Shem, please, give me a kiss. There you go. Give me a kiss. Give me a hug. Somehow, some way. You know, you think sometimes I don't know what to ask Hashem. What do you want? And don't be too manly to say it. Don't be too all up in your head. Say what you want right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here right now. I'd love a hug. I really love a hug. Somebody tell me David is going to be okay. I would love right now if Rabbi Nachman was alive and he could tell me one time, I see you. You're doing good. I'm proud of you. Keep going. I never heard it. Let me get one hug, something. So I go home. All of a sudden, I'm sitting on the couch. I'm not depressed. I didn't go into that space. I'm not feeling good. Definitely not feeling good. sitting down to myself. I tell my wife, by the way, this is another thing. I'm not feeling so well. This is one of those times, but don't worry, it's going to get better. I'm doing everything I need to do. Just give me a little extra dose of empathy and a little more sweetness when you talk to me a little bit. She said, sure, no problem, you got it. And I'm sitting there, and I start to think about the thing that we're learning in Torah 6, that he brings into Tehillim again. Unbelievable. That David HaMelech says, Hashem, when I go up to Shamayim, there you are. And if I make my bed in hell, here you are. So Rabbi Nachman says, what is David teaching you? That somehow that when you ascend spiritually, when you achieve everything you want to in your life, Hashem is distant from you. But when you are suffering the worst suffering, to the extent that you have made hell your own bed, this is where you're laying. This is your whole experience in life. He's saying, Hashem, here you are. You're with me right now. And I'm thinking to myself, and I say to Hashem, thank you that right now you're here. Maybe a few weeks ago, you were there. And even though I like that, but you're only there. Now you're here. And as I was thinking this, my kids come over. One of them is 3 and the other one is 4. And the girl starts singing. And the boy starts singing as well. Rabbeinu sha'ah b'kol gato. Rabbi Nachman screamed in a loud voice. And then all of a sudden my son comes over and joins in. Rabbeinu sha'ah b'kol gato. And they start singing together. Ein shum yeyosh, ein shum yeyosh. Ein shum yeyosh ba'olam klal. There's no such thing as despair in the world at all. That Rabbeinu screamed in a loud voice. There's no such thing as despair in the world at all. And then I thought, okay, that's cute. Maybe it was just like a chance. I come home, and by the way, they're not always singing this. And they just continue singing over and again. She does again. She goes, no, Rabbeinu sha'ak. And they go through like a whole thing for minutes and minutes and minutes. It doesn't end. I'm like, oh my gosh, Hashem, thank you so much. Thank you so much. By the way, this is one of the beautiful things about making your children Breslauer Hasidim. That they have, I never, when I was 4 years old, was saying the most motivating speeches that you could give to a 30-year-old father, you know, sitting on the couch. There's no despair in the world. They don't even know what they're saying. And this is something that we need to know. That Hashem is always with you. And that when Rabbi Nachman says, and he screams it, why does he scream it? Sha'ag. Why is he screaming it? Somebody came over to me and said, I thought he said Sha'ah. I said, no, Sha'ag. And he goes, oh, I go, no, you have to know. It says Sha'ag. Okay. I said, do you know why? He said, he screamed it. He roared it like a lion. Why is he roaring it with tuberculosis? He's throwing up blood. He's almost 40 years old. He's very young. His wife just died from tuberculosis. His son, who he thought was going to be the Mashiach, he also died. He has suffering after suffering after suffering. His students are with him, and he screams out loud at the top of his lungs, Ein shum yehush ba'olam klal. And it turns into a song years later. It was a Torah. He was screaming at them. What are you in despair for? There's no such thing as despair at all. He's screaming. Why is he screaming? Because the world looks very much like there is. Because your life feels very much like there is. The reason why Rabbi Nachman has to scream it is because it doesn't feel like that's the case. And you have to do whatever it takes to believe that. When I go into my Hibodedut, I sing this over and over and over until I feel it. And if I don't feel it, I start screaming at the top of my lungs, like we learned in Kutim Moran Torah 5. Someone might say, oh my gosh, it's a lot of effort to feel better, you know? You're screaming, you're singing, you're clapping, you're dancing. What else are you doing? You're giving everything over to Hashem. You're doing the Zamra. It's like so many things. And I used to feel very bitter about this. But then again, what's your ratzon? What do you really want? You want to help people who are suffering. They need many tools. So how are you going to teach them if you don't know anything? You know, the Baal Shem Tov, he used to have a lot of people don't know this. He used to have a deal with his students. You're only allowed to teach over something that you know. What do you mean that you know? Who knows that you've experienced? You can only teach something you've experienced. Okay. So now I get to teach it. What's the lesson for all of us in our lives? And then we'll take questions if you want. The lesson is like this. You have to really think to yourself, instead of going into victim mode, why me? Here we go again. Ask yourself, what's my deepest ratzon? And I promise you, there's a very good chance that whatever you're going through at that moment somehow is going to lead you to that place. But the only ways to get there is to follow the eitzah of the tzaddik. You have to not go into despair. You have to not rely on your preconceived notions about what life and what is. And you have to rely on the things that you learned and fight with all of your might. Because Rabbi Nachman says that patience, you need to get to the land of Israel, which is not just a physical place. It is a space that's called Emunah Shlema, that every Jew needs to yearn to have complete Emunah. That's called living in the land. And only once he lives in the land can he be called a Baal Milchama, an Ish Milchama, a man of war. And it could be you're destined to be a man of war. But you might feel very weak, but you're not weak. Okay? Tools, a zamra. You got to say good things. By the way, I just want to make an announcement. 2 of the students of Tzion, longtime students, they're going to start teaching. Okay? One of the beautiful things about giving this over now for a few years is you have some guys who have really, and women who have really held on, who have brought it into their life in a very real, genuine way. And they want to, and I want to give them an opportunity to start to give it over. So one of those people is Avraham. This Wednesday night, he's going to be giving a class, his first class, on a Zamra. I really encourage everybody to go. Even if you guys like hearing from me, you should know that Rabbi Nachman says there are points that you can get from other people, not from your teacher, but from friends that you can't get from your teacher. Okay? So don't think that another person, maybe who's not a rabbi, who doesn't have a hat, who doesn't have a beard, doesn't have something to say. This is not a Breslov ideology. This is nonsense. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has something valuable, especially those people who are really trying. He's also very smart, and I think he's going to give over something very beautiful. Okay, so Wednesday night, 9 p.m., Avraham, come here, listen to him. Bezrat Hashem will have it on Zoom so you can watch online. What's that? The first one's going to be just men. Okay, I'll speak to him about it. Maybe if he feels it's going to be more general, we could do for both. Benjamin Roberts, the longest student of Tzion and one of the co-founders of the Tzion Bresla project. So he is going to start teaching. He's actually been teaching for years. We were just looking for the right time to have him teach for us. And I think now is a very good time. There's a book that came out that's very beautiful, 2 books. One of them speaks specifically about Hibodedut, but in a very practical way. I see that a lot of people in the classes, they text me about different ways to do Hibodedut, different methods, different methodologies, different experiences, but very practical, down to earth. This book is like that. Benny's been doing Hibodedut for longer than me, and probably for more hours than me. And I think that he's going to do a very, very good job of giving that over to you guys. We have not figured out what day yet, but I think he's going to take Tuesday nights. Okay, I'm going to be in Israel, so it doesn't conflict. We're going to have to find a new time when I get to Israel for my classes, okay? So those 2 things there. Zamra, I'm not a victim. Hashem is doing it because he loves me. He wants to bring me to my innermost ratzon. I have to figure out what that is. I give it over to him. I feel comfortable enough to tell those people around me that I'm not doing well, to give myself enough space to try and get better. I think only positive thoughts, even though I'm not thinking positive things or feeling positive things. Why? Because that creates a new ability to have a new experience in my life. And more than anything, like Rabbi Nachman says, that you throw yourself on the tzaddik completely. And he says there's no such thing as despair in the world at all. That Rabbi Nachman says, even if I went down to hell, literally mamish, after this life is over, I would not be sad for one moment, because Hashem's there also. Hashem's there also. I want to say thank you to everybody here. This is not an ending. This is a beginning. but I just want to tell everybody that this past year, it's been almost a year since we created Zion, has been the most special year of my life. And I'm sure a lot of the people who have been involved with Zion that have worked so hard, it's been something unbelievable. We did not imagine that we would have a YouTube channel. I don't think that was international, that you have students from Israel and from Canada and from Mexico and from Ukraine, non-Jews from Ukraine, from Oman, a whole list of people who are connecting to this, and not just even in a superficial way, but in a very, very deep way. It's been an unbelievable experience so far, and we're just starting. I really believe, and Rabbi Nachman says that somehow by taking the teachings and spreading them out from Zion, that it's going to go even further and it's going to hit even harder. So Bezrat Hashem, we're all going to do that together. So you guys were all there for the beginning. And I just want to say thank you so much that even though you think that you've received a lot from me, I've received much more from you. This is literally a dream for me. It's been a dream for me. And no matter how bad I feel, this is always the best moments of my week. And it's been the most special experience of my life. So I just want to say thank you to everybody here. Tuesday night, we're going to have our probably final Luke Kutimiran class. We might end up doing a Thursday one. It depends how much, if we finish the lesson or not. And then Bezrat Hashem will do the classes from Israel, and Benjamin and Abraham are going to start teaching weekly here. So does anybody have any questions from tonight's class, or about the schedule, or about things happening in the future? Go ahead. We're going to have the Likutei Halachot in the morning, Bezrat Hashem. All week. We'll see as it gets closer, because it's crunch time. But I'm going to try to do the Likutei Halachot classes in the morning. Yeah.
So whatever you're saying, does it have to do with also finding out who you're on? Like, who am I?
Yeah. Oh, so this is something that I wanted to speak about that I didn't. So I'll just say in a snapshot. We often think that we are our bodies, or we think that we are something very external. In Kabbalah, it's taught that there's different levels of your soul. The highest level of a Jewish man, Jewish woman's soul is called the Keter, their crown. In Kabbalah, it's explained that what part of your psyche, what part of your being is the Keter of your soul. It's called your Ratzon. Rabbi Nachman teaches something very deep. You are your will. You don't have a will. You are your Ratzon. So 100%, it has to do with knowing who you are, because you are your will. And as long as you don't know your deepest, most will, you don't know who you are. And this is the secret behind Hashem telling Avram Avinu, Lech Lecha, right? Go for yourself, Rashi says. But then the Hasidic masters, they say, look deeper. Lech Lecha literally means go to yourself. And he says, I want you to leave behind your parents' home. I want you to leave behind your country. Go to the place I'm going to show you. What place is the place he's going to show me? The place he's going to show Abraham is Abraham's innermost Ratzon. That for the rest of Abraham's life, he has test after test after test. That's all called getting to the land of Israel. When did he finally achieve it? Akedat Yitzchak. Now I know you have a Munah. So you would never think that that would be the highest point of his life, that's called going to the land of Israel. Except what Abraham more than anything wanted to do was be Ish Emunah, to give the whole world Emunah. How do you do that? You don't know. Only Hashem knows. That came through Akedat Yitzchak, which he never would have wished for himself. And this is the point of the class. Question or statement, David? Amen. Before your statement, do you have any questions? By the way, the class is over. I know you guys are very polite. You don't have to stay if you.
So the Zoom that you did, you were talking about both that the Binyamin is going to have a class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell me the name and where we can find it again?
Sure. Benny, do you know the actual name of the book? I think you know the name of the book. The Rebbe's Pharmacy. You can order it maybe online. We're going to work on getting the books for everybody. What? So Yaakov, what's your number? Can you put it on the chat also for everybody?
Whoever wants it, I'll give it to you after.
Okay, Benjamin's going to give everybody the number after.
You said there's a website where we can buy books.
Breslov?
Yeah.
Yeah, so most Breslov books, especially the Kutmaran, the Kutei Halachot, a lot of the books that we do are from the Breslov Research Institute. They're amazing. They're in English and Hebrew. They're the only usually English and Hebrew books that you will find. And they also have a very, very good Masorah, meaning it's not with Breslov. Sometimes you don't know exactly where it's coming from, but them you can trust. But there is another rabbi who started putting out books. His students started putting out books from him that are very, very beautiful. And they have a different type of take, a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more, you feel it in your kishkas. And these two books, these are the ones that Benny's going to start teaching. That's one of them, yeah. And they have very amazing deals, honestly, like crazy 30, 40, 50%. They just want you to take those books. You guys have any questions? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work properly.
Okay. Please don't hurt me. It's my last night. Thank you.
How do you know, or how do you overcome feeling that there's something being presented to you, or someone's reaching out to you about something, whether it be an offer, whether it be anything, but you feel that it's not for you.
Okay.
But it's something that's being consistent, and the person's always reaching out and trying to get your attention and trying for you to try it, but you just feel like it's not for you, you just ignore it.
Yes.
Do you like go with your gut feeling, or do you sort of give it a shot? Like, what's the right approach?
Okay. So the question was for anybody who was online, can hear. If somebody keeps coming to me with a proposal, I do not want to engage in the proposal. I don't think it's good for me, but they don't stop asking me. Should I stick to my guns and not take it? Or should I give it a try? Okay. For me to give a blanket statement would be insane. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. It depends on the situation. It depends on what they're asking you. If it's something illegal, stick to your guns and continue not to engage in it. If it's something that maybe the reason you're resisting it is because you're scared, even though it is good for you. So this is where Hippolytu comes in. I honestly do this, and I don't know if it's like considered to be a business effective thing. I don't make decisions for Tzion. I don't make decisions for my family. I don't make decisions for my kids' education. I don't make big decisions in my life unless I first do an hour of Hippolytu and I talk about it. So I have no other way to tell you. Rabbi Nachman says you're going to achieve Ruach HaKodesh, that when you talk to Hashem for that hour, if you're as honest and genuine as possible, you will feel within you what you should do. I know there's easier answers than that, but I want to give you an honest one. So it doesn't mean the whole hour you need to speak about it, but I just, that's the only, because the truth is, you do know what you want to do and you do know what's good for you, but you only know when all of the outside noise is away and you can think clearly and you're happy. That's the only time that you can really know what you want to do. Yeah.
I have a question where it's like not so much on the class, just in general.
Okay.
I was reading in a couple svarim that, for example, all of us here are learning and we're in the works of getting better at Hashem, having a personal conversation and getting closer to him. Just an included for me that I struggle with,
Right.
and just for clarification, is that I feel like sometimes in my Torah, I tend to complain a lot. You know, like go through whatever scenarios, go through like, oh, this sucks, that sucks. And I was reading one farm that whenever the Jews complained, they suffered more.
Yeah.
Can you touch on complaining?
Sure. I just need you to explain to me what touch means.
Detail.
I know, I'm just kidding. Touch it up. So the question was, it's a good question.
Is it allowed?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the question was, I find myself, because Rabbi Nachman says that the main essence of doing Hippolytu is I talk to Hashem like I speak to my best friend. And how would I speak to my best friend about things that I'm struggling with? I would complain about them because it makes me feel better, or at least in the moment, it gives me some type of relief to get it off my chest. However, Benjamin says that he's seen certain Sfarim, which I'm guessing are like the Garden of Gratitude. No, I'm just, okay. But I'm just bringing it up because you're going to see different mashpias in Breslov say different things, okay? If you look just simply at Rabbi Nachman's words, you will see that he says explicitly, you should advocate to Hashem and you should complain to Hashem like a son does to his father. Okay. On the other hand, if you read certain mashpiyas like Rav Arush's wonderful books, the garden books, you will see that he has a very strong take on the concept of complaining, and he's very against it. He makes CDs about it. It's called Stop Crying. He has books, and in the books, he says that all of the suffering in your life is coming from complaining. And if you just thanked Hashem for the whole hour, all your problems would go away. Okay. So a lot of people swear by this. A lot of people have had experienced miracles by this. I myself just do whatever Rabbi Nachman says as I understand him to say. He says, depends when and where. Okay. Now, is the complaining that Rabbi Nachman is speaking about one of ingratitude? I don't believe so. So I think that this is the harmony. That is that when Rabbi Nachman says to advocate for yourself, it's under the first impression that whatever Hashem's doing is for your best, is because he loves you. And now I'm going to start advocating for myself based on that. But if I'm advocating for myself based on a victim mindset, that is that I always have it the worst, and that this is really not good, and you're not answering me. So none of that is coming from a place of really trusting that what Hashem wants is good for you. So in that case, I don't know that that's what Rabbi Nachman was speaking about. And I think maybe that's the place that it comes together.
Because the way I read it is that one way to approach Hashem or Hashem, I'm hungry, I need something.
Yeah.
You're not complaining, but you're expressing that they're complaining, what you're feeling.
Right.
Instead of, oh, Hashem, why? Like, you're not even
Right.
happy you had food like 5 minutes ago. But, you know what I'm saying?
I understand. It's a very
You're negating what you had, and you're just focusing on what you don't have.
yeah. So these are difficult things. I could give you a blanket statement and just tell you in general, it will be best, especially when you're it brings you into a worse place emotionally, to start to advocate or complain. Then maybe it would be better for you specifically to work on gratitude. But there is a place for advocating for change. And is that called complaining in the sense of the way that we think of complaining when we want something and we don't get it? But it's minuscule. It's not as important as we think it is. So I don't know if it's that, right? You have to try and work through it in your ibodedut. I know that for me, I certainly ask Hashem for a lot of things, and I'm not shy at all about it. And probably people would say I'm complaining, but Rabbi Nachman says to. So there's a time and a place for everything. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah, there's a question online. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Gosh,
amazing
my eyes
class.
are so tired.
Amazing class. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. So listening to a lot of the concepts, the subjects or topics that were brought up, it reminded me of kind of like it brought me to where I'm going, what I'm kind of going through today. And I know that so there's a Gemara that says when you have two options, when you have two things going, and then you have two options, but one is not, you're kind of in limbo, to go with the one that's a for sure thing, to go with the one that's more likely. Now, I'm kind of in limbo with some of the things that are going on here. And okay, so as far as like my ratzon, like asking Hashem in my hit body do, okay, I've been asking for it, but I feel that I've been talking in truth, and I haven't really been getting the answers that I'm looking for, because he just continues to place more obstacles in my path. Okay, now as you brought up also that Keter, and I remember from another shir that it was Keter comes from the Aramaic word Ketar, which means waiting, which again is the highest revelation of God. Yes. So I don't know if I'm answering my own question here, but as far as being patient and being excited to wait, right? Like, what do I do what am I doing in the meantime when I have these options and I have all these obstacles and I'm patiently waiting? It's about going to Israel, and you know about this a little bit, but I don't know what to do in the meantime in this moment. So what do I do?
So the question for everybody here, and thank you for everybody being patient. By the way, the class is over, so you don't have to stay if you don't want to. I'm just the question was, if I want something and I'm praying for it a lot and I'm waiting for it to happen, and I have two options in my life, but I'm waiting for an answer before I choose, and I keep asking Hashem to give me an answer. I'm not getting one. What should I do in the meantime? Okay. So part of the reason why Rabbi Nachman says that your prayer is not getting answered is not because Hashem doesn't want to give it to you, but it's often, Rabbi Nachman says, because Hashem wants to increase your will for that thing. Let's say, for instance, you're praying to go to the land of Israel. Let's say you're praying to get married. Let's say you're praying to be healthy. Let's say you're praying for X, Y, and Z. Okay, let's say you're praying for Parnasa, whatever. So Rabbi Nachman says that there are times, because what you're praying for is so good, it's so important, it would be such a blessing. So Hashem wants you to enjoy the blessing. Like the Ramchal teaches, Hashem created the whole world in order to give you good, in order to give you the greatest good. What would be the greatest good? That you really enjoy whatever you get. Let's say, for instance, for me, why is Tzion so sweet for me? Because I suffered for 30 years almost in order to experience it. What if I would have just had a Havamina one day to get up and start a nonprofit organization, and all of a sudden people are into it? That wouldn't be so sweet for me. Why? Because my will for it was not as great. My want for it is not as great. So Rabbi Nachman teaches that when your desire for the thing is as great as the thing itself, Hashem will give it to you right away. So one thing for sure, if you don't have it yet, it's because Hashem wants you to want it more. So that's one thing, to increase your want. The other thing to know is that part of it is waiting and having that prayer every day and crying to Hashem, Hashem, please help me. I need to know. I want to know. I want you to help me. It's a part of the experience. This is the whole lesson that we're learning right now. Part of it is waiting. And even though we don't enjoy that, it's that trust that Rabbi Nachman says that for that 1 hour, you give forth everything that's inside of you. But for 23 hours after that, you know that whatever's going on is what Hashem wants to, and you're happy. Right? Even if you don't get an answer. And then when you go back, if you didn't get it by your next hour of Hibodedut, you go at it again. Yeah. But then the same thing afterwards. Any other questions before we end up here? Any final questions? Yeah. What? Yeah, and we can do our Vid after.
Did Rabbi Nachman yearn to live in Eretz Yisrael?
Very much so. They asked him, where are you going? And no matter where he was going, he said, wherever I'm going to the land of Israel. He yearned very, very much. And he actually says explicitly in Likut Moran that all real tzaddikim want to live in the land of Israel. That what makes them real tzaddikim is their yearning that's so intense to be in the land.
Like pit stops in between?
There is a lot of pit stops in between. There's a lot of pit stops in between. There's a whole desert in between. Yeah, Pittsburgh. Oh yeah, yeah. Through suffering. Yeah, that's this Gemara. Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. So with this, we'll end. Final question before our Vit. You mean better? Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Okay. So the question was like this, and then we'll have, you want a statement? Okay, so we'll do a statement and then we'll do the question. But you have to say Rabbeinu first. Okay, go ahead.
So, we already mentioned this, that when Hashem told to Abraham Avinu,
Yeah.
go for yourself to the land that I will show you, Hashem is telling to Abraham Avinu to leave his father's house, to leave all the teva behind.
Yeah. Beautiful. Very good, David. Thank you.
Right? You already mentioned this before.
Definitely. Very good. Thank you. Okay. So, and the question was, why does the Gemara equate Torah, Olam Haba, and the land of Israel? Yeah. The Gemara says, very famous Gemara, that there are 3 things that can only be acquired through suffering. Those 3 things are called Torah, Olam Haba, and the land of Israel. So the Torah you can understand, because any type of intellectual thing that you want to try and understand, you're going to have to toil really hard in order to understand it. And Olam Haba, I get that because I'm going to have to toil my whole life to grow spiritually so I can enter into a place that's all good. But the land of Israel, it's just the land of Israel. Yeah, it's a land like any other land. And I know that it has nice weather over there. People are a little better looking over there. But it doesn't mean that I should have to suffer so much to be able to live in the land. Yeah. Until you learn Likutei Moharan, and the next lesson that we're going to learn Likutei Moharan, where Rabbi Nachman states explicitly that the land of Israel is a state of Emunah Shlema. So why is it that I have to suffer so much in order to obtain the land of Israel? It's because it's very, very hard to acquire Emunah. And also, on a side note, according to Kabbalah, the land of Israel and Olam Haba is one concept. That the land of Israel, so to speak, is like a, even though it's here in this physical world, it's really from future. It's from Olam Haba. It's called the Olamot. It's like the Olam of Neshamot. It's the world of souls, and that place is called Eretz Yisrael. So our souls are literally formed from that land. That's the reason why many of us, even on birthright trips, me myself, I got off the plane. I felt like I was home for the first time. And I didn't realize why until I saw in the Zohar. It's because that my neshama was literally given birth to by that land. So that's why it feels like home for everybody.
Emes. Toda Rabbi.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
Is it possible, like your own inner peace, but also should be a sort of Yerushalayim?
Right. So that for sure that the inner meaning of the fact that Eretz Yisrael is a place of complete Emunah would be a state of complete inner peace. That's true. But at the same time, while that is the essence, it doesn't negate the simple understanding that it is that physical place itself. So somehow they all come together.
Was Eretz Yisrael named after Yaakov Avinu, or was Yaakov Avinu named after Eretz Yisrael?
Very good. Eretz Yisrael was named after Yaakov Avinu. And this is actually hinted to in a very important teaching that we're going to do next. That is that the concept of Eretz, of land, represents emunah, faith in something. It used to be called Eretz Canaan. It's taught in Chassidut that Canaan represents all of your taivas and all of your subjugation to the physical world and to society. That's called Canaan. Rabbi Nachman has a Torah in Likutei Moharan that Canaan comes from the word Ken ani, that I am oni, I'm a poor person. Okay? So why am I poor? Because I don't have da'at, because I don't know Hashem. As a result of that, I'm invested in other false realities. That's called Eretz Canaan. What's Eretz Yisrael? Yisrael represents Yaakov. It says give emet to Yaakov, give truth to Yaakov. Why? Because Yaakov represents the absolute truth of truths. So Eretz Yisrael means emunah, faith in Yisrael, the truth. Okay, so this is why it's such a special land, because it's where heaven and earth kiss. It's where faith and truth unite and become one. B'ezrat Hashem, we should all have the zchut to be there together. Okay, we're going to do our Vit now. Everybody, thank you so much. Have a great night.